Welcome to our TPC videos. In this video on adding a lot traverse, I'm going to add another lot to this existing survey, showing you how to create a traverse, recall existing points, and enter new ones. You'll see the traverse get drawn as I enter the data and track any corrections I make. In the process, you'll see why traverses are at the heart of TPC, and maybe learn some techniques that you'll want to consider using in Traverse PC. So, let's get started. I've started with one of our sample surveys, and I want to show you where you can go get this survey and follow along with us if you'd like. I'm going to come over to the Tasks Manager. The Tasks Manager lists the surveys I've had open recently, but in the next section down, I have sample surveys. Let's go ahead and click on that. Traverse PC opens up the sample surveys that come installed with TPC Desktop, in this case 2025. They're arranged alphabetically, so I'm going to scroll down to one called Learn Import. Find it in the list, then double-click or hit the Open button. These sample surveys are included in the learning guides, and if we come back to the Task Manager, here are the learning guides down here. In fact, I'll reference this at the end of the video. And we provide the sample surveys that you can follow right along in those learning guides, and I wanted to use it for our video here this morning. So let's go ahead and start our traverse for Lot 5. Over in the Traverse Manager, I'm going to tell Traverse PC I want to append Lot 5 to the existing traverses. So if I double-click anywhere past the end of the traverses, Traverse PC says, let's create a traverse here. I'm going to call it Lot 5. Because I double-clicked at the end there, it says I'm going to insert it after the last traverse. And then I want to choose the traverse view format and the traverse drawing setting. The traverse view format I'm going to choose is Deed with Curves. Now, if I drop into that Deed with Curves, I can see that what I've done is I've defined the columns I want to display in the traverse view. And we'll come back and visit this. I've also determined what data I want to enter when I press the Enter key. Where do I want the cursor to go for the next data to enter? Then I'm going to choose a traverse drawing settings. I'm going to choose property lines. And again, we're going to talk about this in a moment. But basically, the traverse drawing settings say, how do I want to create or draw this traverse? What line type, what annotations, what point symbols, how big, what symbols, labels do I want to use? And I like the property lines. These are predefined settings. You can certainly create your own. There's a whole list here you can choose from. But once you have settings you like, you can also save yours, and then they'll show up in the list as well. And then I want to set the tag for this because I want it to draw in the drawing as I enter the data. And remember, any traverse that's tagged over here gets included in the drawing. So I'm going to choose OK, and Traverse PC opens up the traverse view for the new traverse, and it uses the next available point label. Now, if I come over to the Point Manager, I can see that I've used points 1, 2, 3, down through point 10. So point 11 is the next available point number it can use, and that's what it uses as the default point number. Now, I haven't computed anything for the point yet, but at least I have a starting point for the traverse. Now, remember I said I want to create or add Lot 5 here to the north of Lot 4. That means the two lots are going to share this common lot line between 9 and 10. Now, it's important to know in Traverse PC that there can only ever be 1.10, 1.9, and one line between them. So points are unique, lines are unique. If I come back and look at the Point Manager here, I have just one occurrence of point 9, one occurrence of point 10, and there's only one line between them, in this case a tangent line. So, in this traverse, I'm going to tell Traverse PC that I simply want to recall point 10, and I'm going to start here in the southwest corner of this Lot 5 by recalling point 10. So let's type 10 and press Enter. Traverse PC looks through the survey and says, oh, I've got a point 10. What do you want to do? And I want the default option, which is highlighted here. It says recall the existing point and its coordinates. So I've just recalled point 10, and instead of clicking OK, I just press the Enter a second time. So now let's recall point 9, Enter, Enter, and I've got point 9. I just recalled points 10 and 9 into this traverse by entering them in the traverse. But as you might have guessed, there are lots of ways to create and populate traverses. In the traverse view, I'm just going to press the F1 key for help. And Traverse PC is going to take me to the Unified Help System, right to the Traverse View help topic. But I want you to see here on the left-hand side in the table of contents that we're under the traverses chapter. And look, here's a whole section on creating traverses. Well, we just did to create lot 5. Here's a whole section on adding points to a traverse and entering traverse data, adding points to a traverse in the drawing view. And you're going to find the workflows in here that fit you best, and it's going to make Traverse PC a lot of fun to use because they're going to really simplify the work that you do. Now I'm going to close this out. I'm going to show you that I could have just started this traverse, and I could have come into the Edit menu and said Insert Existing Points. And there are a whole bunch of ways to say, I want to insert a range of points, for instance. So maybe this was points 15 through 9. And I don't want to have to recall 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. I could just say recall 15 to 9. It would reverse the order and it would pull those points into this traverse automatically. That's just one way. I'm going to also come in and delete this traverse. I just created it. Let's go ahead and delete it. And I want to show you another quick way to add lot 5. I'm going to come over to the drawing view. I'm going to right click and choose Add Points to Traverse. This is a command I can use from any number of the views. And it's going to look similar in that I can call this lot 5. I'm going to select a traverse view format and the traverse drawing settings just like we did a moment ago. But now I'm going to say select existing survey points only, and you determine the sequence. So when we're all done, I'm going to leave the traverse view open. I'm not going to repeat the command. And now I'm going to follow the prompts on the bottom line that just say left click a point. So I'm going to left click either the point label or the symbol for 10 or the end of the line that's nearest point 10. And Traverse PC is going to create that traverse and add 10. And I'm going to come over and add 9 by left clicking it. Now I'm going to press the Enter key to tell it I'm all done entering. And when I come down and add the next point to this traverse, it's going to be point 11, just like we had. So remember, there are many, many ways to create traverses and to put data into those traverses, and I've just shown you a couple here in this video. So now regardless of which way I chose to start the traverse with points 10 and 9, I have point 11 and I'm ready to use it now. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to extend this east line of lot 4 from points 8 to 9 up north to use this next point 11 here. I want to show you how I'm going to do that. In the traverse view, let's go over to the bearing and we're going to type 8.9. Now this is an equation, or something Traverse PC calls an equation. I can use point label, point label, and Traverse PC will recall whatever data pertains to that column, in this case a bearing column. So it'll recall the bearing between 8 and 9. Now I could add plus 90 to that and it would recall the bearing plus 90, or minus 90, it would recall the bearing and then subtract minus 90 degrees from that. But when I press 8.9, Traverse PC knows it's an equation and it simply recalls that for me. Now let's go ahead and put in the distance to point 11 and see how it draws it for me in the drawing view. So I'm entering the data in the traverse view, but the views are synchronized. So the data that I'm entering in the traverse view is showing up for me in the drawing view. And it's kind of like proof positive of what I'm doing with the points. But let's say I entered that 120 incorrectly. It should have been 140. Just go put the 140 in, press enter, Traverse PC recomputes point 11, and I see the information in the traverse view. I see it redrawn in the drawing view. Now, let's go ahead and start this north line of lot 5 here, and let's make it parallel to the north line of lot 4. So we want it to be parallel from 9 to 10. And you know how to do that now. So we're going to, back in the traverse view, remember I said there's a edit sequence, and the edit sequence says, when I press the enter key on a bearing, I want it to go to the distance. When I press the enter key on a distance, I want it to go to the radius, which is where it's at right now. And after I press the distance on enter key on the radius, I want it to go to a arc length. So that's why when I press the enter key, it went to radius, goes to arc length again. When it's done with the edit sequence, it advances to the next point. and the next point is 12. Now you know how to recall the bearing now between 9 and 10. It's 9, dot, dot, 10, enter. And let's put it out there 250 feet. So that was pretty easy to get all the data in, to recall existing bearings, and create points 11 and 12. Let's do something a little more complicated, but I want you to see that it's not difficult. Let's use COGO, coordinate geometry, to compute the intersection of this curve here as it goes up and intersects this north line. So we want this north line to be parallel to the north line of lot 4, but we want it to intersect the curve that's on the west side of lot 4. And to do that, we're going to use an intersect routine. So let's come down and say, I want to recompute this point 12, and we'll do COGO intersect. So I'm using the COGO menu. I'm choosing the intersect command. And Traverse PC is going to bring up a dialog that lets me do what I want here. Now I can say on this first part of this dialog, I want to go from point 11, and I want to use a bearing that's parallel with this north line of lot 4, so 9 to 10. Remember that equation we did earlier? I can type 9, dot, dot, 10 here in the COGO dialog, just like it did back in the Traverse view, and Traverse PC recalls that bearing. Now I also could have used this chevron here and said, I actually want to pick the bearing, and I'm going to pick it from 10 to 9 momentarily here, and see how it goes northeast, it goes from 10 to 9. I'm going to pick that again, but this time closer to the 9 end of the line. And now I get a southwest bearing of 8256. So this makes it real easy for me to get a bearing in just by picking an endpoint of a line in a drawing. Now I'm going to use that same feature to select the line I want to intersect to. So I'm going to use this double chevron that says now instead of picking a point, pick a line. I'm going to come in and pick this line right here. And Traverse PC says that line goes from 7:1 to 10. It brings in the curve information. It's counterclockwise using a radius of 430 feet. And I'm going to say that all looks really good, except the computation, the intersection I want to compute, is beyond the endpoints of this arc. So I'm just going to simply tell Traverse PC, I want to accept a solution beyond the endpoints. Now I'm going to recall point 12. I could type point 12 or use the chevron again. And that's the point I'm going to update. So right away, Traverse PC says, what do you want to do with that existing point 12? And it picks the right solution here. It says, I want to update the existing point with the computed coordinates. And as soon as I do, Traverse PC says, I just brought in the coordinates for that point 12, updated its position, and redrew it in the drawing. So intersections are pretty complex because I can do intersections of bearing line, two distances, with offsets. But you saw how easy it was for me to just pick the points that I want and actually see the intersection that I created while I was creating it and say that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I can simply say, close it, and I'm done creating point 12. Now let's finish this off by coming back to point 10 and putting in the curve that we want. So in our Traverse view, we're going to press the Enter key till we drop down to the next point. I'm going to arrow over or use the mouse to get back to the point label column because I want to interrupt my data entry sequence here and say instead of entering another bearing and distance, I want to actually recall a point now. And I'm going to recall point 10. And instead of pressing Enter, I'm going to press the up arrow key, which recalls the point. That's my option with Enter, but it doesn't go down and create a new point. I sure could have. I could have created the next point, which would have been 13, and I could have just deleted it. But I chose not to, and in this case I said just recall that point and then arrow up. Now, Traverse PC says I'm going to create a new line between 12 and 10. And without any additional information, Traverse PC says I'm going to create a tangent there. Well, I don't want a tangent. I want a curve here that has a radius of 430 feet. So let's just come over here and put in that radius of 430 feet inside the Traverse view. Let's type 430, Enter. Now, if I went the wrong way, I would put a minus 430. Let's just put it in there for the fun of it. And I can see that, oh, curves are clockwise or counterclockwise based on the sign of the radius. So what I want to do is simply say, put in the correct radius for that, in this case a positive 430, and I've just added the curve between 12 and 10 to match the radius of the curve for the west line of lot 4 here. Let's go ahead and do something here now to talk about tooltips. I'm going to drag this curve label over here a little bit. I'm going to put cursor over that line. Traverse BC tells me in the tooltip that this is a clockwise curve from 12 to 10 for lot 5. It gives me all the curve information and the endpoints of the line. But what I want to let you know here is that this information isn't coming from the drawing. We certainly have a line in the drawing that represents this curve. But remember I said curves, lines, and points are all unique in Traverse BC. There can only ever be one line between 2 points. So between points 12 and 10, there can only ever be one line, and that line is in the survey, not the drawing. We've represented it in the drawing, but the data for that line and that line itself are back in the survey. And Traverse BC then can show us that information in the tooltip when we put the cursor over that line. And I can do the same thing for point 12 by putting the cursor either over the label or the symbol for point 12. Either way, Traverse BC knows that I'm accessing point 12, and it provides information about that from the survey. So it's important to know that the drawing is just representing the data that's in the survey for me. One of the last things I'll do here then is that, I've got lot labels for 2, 3, and 4, but not for 5. So it's real easy for me in Traverse BC to say, I'm going to right-click anything that's drawn by lot 4. And again, the tooltip tells me that if I'm over a line label, and the tooltip comes up, it tells me that that's a line label from 8 to 9, and it's part of lot 4. So I'm going to right-click, and in the drawing, I'm going to go into something called Traverse Tools, and I'm going to copy those Traverse drawing settings. The Traverse drawing settings include things like lot labels, line annotations, line types, symbols. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to follow the prompt down here. Prompt says left-click the destination traverse. So I can click anything that's drawn by lot 5. And again, the tooltip tells me that. I left-click it, and Traverse BC copies the settings from lot 4 to lot 5. These are the Traverse drawing settings that determine how that traverse gets drawn in the drawing. And then I can continue to left-click other traverses to paste those settings to, or I can simply right-click to end it and be done with the command. So you can see how easy it is then for me to update those Traverse drawing settings. And in other videos, we'll spend some time talking about the quick view technology and Traverse drawing settings that actually are creating all of these drawing objects for me. So you just noticed that I have lot 5 in here now, and I never had to draw any of this manually. I just put the data in, so I've got the data that I can access anytime and verify this lot, but I didn't have to draw it inside Traverse BC. And finally, let's do one final thing with this traverse that we just created to say, why did I create this in the first place? Well, I wanted to create a legal description for lot 5. And let's just do that real quick, just for the fun of it. So I'm going to go to Tools. Let's come down to Reports and Legal Description. And I can choose the style that I want to create that description under. And all those settings are available as far as distances and directions and closures and how I want to do the side shots and display the area. And you can set this up however you want for your legal descriptions and then save that as a style to reuse over and over again. And I'm just going to go ahead and generate the report for that. And here's my legal description. So I wanted the lot 5 legal description. Here I go. And I'm done with my work for the day. So before we leave today, I want to just show you where those learning guides are at. Let's close out the report view, the traverse view. Let's come back to our task manager. Remember I said they're down here at the bottom of the task manager. And I'm going to bring up the one that says traverses. So let's click on the traverses. Traverse BC opens up the learning guide in your browser. They're also available as PDFs so you can download them. I like this table of contents that shows up over here on the left side of the traverse. And I can come in and say, oh, here's a whole section on creating traverses. And we're going to give you sample surveys to open up. And you're going to walk right through creating traverses, creating them in the Traverse Manager, the Points Manager, from the Traverse view, adding and rearranging traverse points, adding points to a traverse, some of the very same things we did. Here's add points to a traverse command. We just did that. And you're going to just find step by step, I'm going to just walk down through this. Oftentimes, it's going to just give you the steps, tell you how to name that traverse, insert points. These learning guides are great. Along with the steps, we give you a picture of what the dialogues are going to look like. For some of you, this is the way that you're going to learn Traverse PC the best. Of course, these have all links back into the help system that we looked at a moment ago. So it's going to take me right back into that chapter that says creating traverses in the Traverse Manager. And many of these have got videos related with them. And in fact, if you're back in the Unified Help System under Traverses, the very first link is the Traverse Learning Guide. So you're going to find it's all kind of connected here. And I just wanted to have you know that you could start right down here in the Task Manager under the Learning Guides.